Hey there, so today I want to return to the wonderful world of entertainment, and I want to show something that really spotlights exactly what people have said about Marvel for quite a long time. This article, it's written for InStyle, and really, the article itself, okay, it's telling enough in the way that approach would be. People always come back, though, and they say, well, it's just an article. You know, it's written by an outside influence. You can't judge a company by that. Well, this, yes, you can. Because the person writing it, Sana there, yeah, that person is a VP with Marvel. Now, if you want to know what kind of person Sana is, this is the kind of person that cannot set their politics aside. In fact, if you go to their Twitter, the first thing you'll see is her standing up on a stage with a comic book in hand with Obama on the cover. Because those nerds there, according to her, they managed to take the White House. Now, of course, the other side of that is, the pushback for another type of person taking the White House, but I digress there. Again, I'm not talking about my politics either, simply pointing out the person involved here. Now, when you listen to what this person has to say, they have admitted to some very interesting transgressions. The worst thing that I've noticed is the attack on fandom and the utilization of Stan Lee as a weapon. If you missed that, essentially Stan Lee was dragged out the year before he tragically passed away. He was actually being used by people behind the scenes. They were stealing money from him. They stole blood from him. And yet Marvel, they did business because they wanted to put the wrong thinkers in their place. That's been their business, their push. And if you listen to interviews from her, you can see why exactly Marvel will not stop those quote-unquote freelancers from going out and attacking fandom. See, one of the things that someone like Sana Amanat really points out is the fact that in the past, fandom was not the construct that she wants to see. So when you think about what that means, what she's trying to entail there from changes, she's saying that the past fandom was quote-unquote problematic and they want something new. Now you see how sales work out for that something new, but anyway, I digress there too. So this article here, Brie Larson is ready to kick some ass. Now you notice the descriptor here about Captain Marvel, and this will come up a few times. Captain Marvel, the ultimate feminist hero. So that's the spin on Captain Marvel these days. Really interesting, considering they tell you that Captain Marvel, she's the strongest hero out there. It's not a female thing. It's actually a hero thing. And yet, of course, you have this descriptor coming up many times. Now, Brie Larson, in this talks about why she took that role. She says, of course, that she liked that character basically because she doesn't apologize for herself. She has certain values there. But then she goes on to talk about her mission in filmmaking. She says, this could be my form of activism, doing a film that can play all over the world and be in more places than I can be physically. Now, when you talk about wanting to promote activism with a film, when you think about, again, not only the marketing there, but what you're trying to relay it, that's going to start leaking into your films after a while. And that's the problem that the comic books have had. These folks have forgotten what made something successful. And mark my words, they will do this with movies as they buy into their marketing. See, they had a huge success before with Black Panther, the marketing for it. If you look at it and you say, what was the difference between Black Panther and, say, Winter Soldier? What was the difference that made it award-winning? Go in and you make up your own mind on that. You go and you see the spin on it. You see all the hype and why people say that it should be award-winning. And then you tell me why Marvel would keep going this way and what they could hurt that way as they go forward. Now here, I thought that this was particularly interesting. This paragraph and the next one. So they talk about the significance of the role. They talk about Captain Marvel being around since '68 and the changes in 2012. As Stephen Wacker put it, she's Earth's mightiest hero, period, not Earth's mightiest female hero. So, of course, we're not focusing on her being a female hero, and yet every piece of press we see out there, every piece of hype talks about that. It talks about that to the nth degree, because that has to be the selling point. Now here you see them talking about the transformation of audience. And again, I find this to be particularly fascinating, not only because of the spin where they say, well, audience is now more welcoming to females, but because of what is unspoken, what they're trying to say about fandom before. Now, when you look at that and you think about why characters were popular, why they did well, and what they're saying about the character, because the character dressed a specific way, females, they can do whatever they want. They can dress however they want. But if they looked like this as a specific hero, well, they were attracting the male gaze, and of course they can't be like that. It's a very fascinating argument. But she says, as the editor of Captain Marvel comic, I witnessed firsthand how the audience transformed around Danvers' reimagining. A contingency of superfans coined the Carol Corps, celebrated the change as a sign that comics were becoming more welcoming to female audiences. So, again, when you look at those sentences there, you can see her approach to it. And we're not talking about becoming more welcoming. I mean, when you look at this, yes, there's all the spin, but it acts as if people couldn't pick up comic books before. They were too heavy or something. Maybe there was some form of kryptonite to it. Oh, I can't get near that. Now then Larson goes out and compares this to seeing Indiana Jones for the first time when she was young. She says that she wanted a female equivalent out there but couldn't find any. She basically dismisses Sigourney Weaver and Aliens, and I found that to be quite interesting because I think back to strong female characters, the ones that fought off the monsters. And when you think about specific types of movies, when you think about horror as a genre, period, who are the strong characters? Who are the ones that actually beat the monsters? Well, of course, they don't count. The only ones that count out there were the ones like Captain Marvel, that basically, again, they're not supposed to be Earth's mightiest female hero. Nope, Earth's mightiest hero. But again, we find out that, again, wasn't the focus for Brie Larson at all. Like I say, I find that to be interesting. So then we talk about her training and on, which, if you want to go in and try to make her really seem like a person that has mass appeal to everyone. I think that's interesting too, because if you look at all the pomp and the pageantry that has surrounded Brie Larson, if you look at all the controversy, she has not seemed like a likable person, but still. Then, of course, they get into much of her drive these days, pushing for social change. She is heavily involved in the Time's Up movement, which was one of the first actors to adopt an inclusion rider in her contract, mandating diversity in casting and production staff, and is a vocal advocate for representation in the media. Now, if you don't remember how that came across, that's a nice way to put what Brie Larson said. Brie Larson essentially said, white people, you don't need to review specific type of movies. You need to step aside and. Very interesting how that spun there. But continuing on, and she begins her global Captain Marvel press tour. She has pledged to spotlight other women behind the scenes, insisting on gender and racial parity in the press and wearing mostly female designers. It's very interesting. Like I say, equality equals, well, mostly this or mostly that. Inclusion has to be a choice. It's not happening naturally. You really have to fight for it. Now, to that end, Larson has high hopes to make that vision a reality. My next goal is to start a school to train people in various jobs. She says, realizing the breadth of the positions on the film set, she wants to create a channel of equal opportunity through a vocational program. There are so many great jobs. You like weird alien blasters? You could be the one that makes them. We need young people to carry on this tradition of movie making, and it would be great if we had more diversity coming in through that. Why is Brie Larson the person that is talking about diversity when it comes to talking about people of color and inclusion writers and on, and that's what we're talking about down here. So it says, I don't want to be successful surrounded by a bunch of people who look like me. That doesn't feel like success at all. So, judging people by what they look like, well, that's not good. Unless, of course, you're talking about about going and finding all female designers and on. So I'm kind of confused by the idea that they're trying to make manifest. I get what she's trying to say here, but really, when you think about the reality of what she's saying here, very interesting the way that it plays out. It's one of Warner Brothers' first movies to implement her and co-stars Michael B. Jordan's inclusion rider. I've been active for 20 years, and it was the first time I had a majority of people of color on my team, she says. Again, when you look at this, when you think about the idea of the implementation of equality, when you're talking about diversity, it's kind of an interesting idea when you use words like majority, majority, and, when you're talking about equality. Again, but I digress. It's always just something that kind of sticks in my mind, and especially when people are talking about balance here. With everything she's dedicated to, I wonder how she manages it all. Balance is sort of a ridiculous concept. It's not like you find balance and you're done. You're always trying to find it. Yeah, except, when you're pushing for things that you say are balance, and they're not really balanced there, Then again, we get back into trying to make her feel like a normal person, like she's a nice person there, because, she prefers Levi's too. She takes hikes with her mom. She's teaching herself how to knit. Instead of glam-ridden selfies, her Instagram is strewn with inspirational quotes and snapshots of friends. Yeah, except, one of her controversies was taking one of those glam shots, showing off basically her person on when Stan Lee died. I mean, if you want to go look that up, it was very interesting too. Like I said, a lot of interesting hype telling me how down to earth a person is when I have to skip over a picture of them every time to try to show me how down to earth, how normal and average people are, because this is what normal average people do. This is exactly how we're posed and on. And again, it's very interesting to see Marvel's spin on this, to know that this is someone behind the scenes, and to see underneath it all what exactly they're saying about Marvel, about their brands, and how they move forward. It's very, very telling, I think, but it's just one snapshot amongst many when you look again at that person. And I would encourage you to do your own research on that. Look at what exactly they've had to say, the attacks on consumers, how they've actually spun that to the consumers being monsters and on. And of course, if you look at the way Marvel presents itself, how their execs and on go out and they compose themselves, you can see that blueprinted in this kind of stuff, in the stuff that Quesada does, in the stuff that C.B. Sapolsky does and doesn't, and then, going on to the other side of it to film. Like I said, you're going to see a blueprint there. It's going to continue forward, and sooner or later, it's not going to be the same blueprint. No, what these people are doing is they are setting up the instrument that will sooner or later make their movies not just boring origin story after origin story for some people. No, it'll take away what those movies actually were, and it'll try to present some other stage, some other first stuff. They'll actually buy into that press and go forward. But anyhow, you tell me what you think about this. Also, if you're new here, if you haven't subbed, please do so. If you like this kind of content, like this stuff. If you don't like it, don't like a video. Leave comments too. Maybe you disagree. Maybe you're like, man, when I look at this stuff, it's the greatest stuff ever. I'm one of those 8,000 people actually buying books like this, because there's not very many. I mean, leave your comments there. There are links within the description too if you want to check that out. Also, we live stream on The Umbrella Guy, and there's an archive for certain things on That Umbrella Guy. That's right, we have our own little network of TUG out there. Also, I want to end on this by saying that I really appreciate you showing up. You are what make channels possible. So, ending this, I want to thank you. So, surely, thank you. I really, really do appreciate you.